right, welcome to Five Stones Podcast. That is now the rebranding.
It is.
While the radio was fun, we found that podcasting is even more fun and actually accesses more people like you who are more dedicated and interested into the topics that we're talking about. And as you can see, we do something slightly different around here. We are sitting in a cigar lounge, and I think we have been negligent in actually talking about what you guys are actually enjoying right now.
Yes.
The Gloria Cubana series are black.
La Gloria Cubana, I like those.
I have an A.J. Fernandez San Latano, the Bull.
The Bull?
The Bull.
You strong like bull?
Strong like bull. No, it's got a nice kick. It's very good.
I think mine's an A.J. Fernandez.
Yeah. New World?
The New World. I like the New World Maduro.
Yeah.
I smoke Maduros all day. A lot of belief that you should start lighter and work up to the boulders in the evening, but
Screw that.
I've been doing it now 15 years, and I start with a Maduro in the morning.
And then with the Maduro.
And end with the Maduro. And matter of fact, they do Maduros in between.
That's good.
Connecticut's are so light, it's like you're smoking the newspaper or something. It's just not. Yeah.
I would recommend them for beginners.
Yes.
But I think once you get 3, 4, 5 years into your journey of cigars, Maduros are where most people are going to end up with.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more bold flavor.
A lot more flavor, a lot more complexity. I think it's less.
And let it be said that we are not sponsored by any of those three companies, by the way. So
we are sponsored by ourselves.
Yeah, purely a choice. So today let's talk a little bit about, we have mentioned once before about the acquisition of a company, and currently I am in the middle of an acquisition and a sale.
Yeah.
So we can maybe give some of the highlights, because it's kind of, this translates to a lot of different areas when you're on the sales side versus on the purchase side. You know, because on the sales side, for instance, we're just kind of sitting back waiting for the buyer to do their due diligence, whereas on the purchase side, we are the ones actually doing all of the due diligence. And I know on the seller side, it's kind of frustrating because they've been,
Well, it's
3 weeks?
hurry up and wait.
Yeah, 4 weeks, and haven't heard anything from them other than, can you hand us this? Can you give us that? And then on the other side, you know, Joe and I sat today and created a list of questions and other things that we wanted to see. So it becomes very important, the due diligence time frame.
Yes.
To do that. Now, ironically funny, in the purchase of this, when we wrote the offer to the seller, we actually gave him 2 offers. We gave him one offer that was at full price, that was spread out over a 12-month period to ensure that he stayed in the business. It was kind of like performance bonus. Whereas the second offer actually was just a cash number. Now, we did ask that he stay 6 months for the transition of technical things like logins for back rooms of, you know, GoDaddy, where his domains are, and things of that nature.
Websites, licensures.
Yeah.
All kinds of things that you don't just pick up on day one
And
run
it's
with.
ironically funny to a lot of real estate agents. We see this all the time where real estate agents say, well, mine was the highest price. Mine was the highest offer. And this guy that accepted my offer is a very good testament to it's not always money, you know, because my cash offer obviously is the discounted price, cash all at one time. And it was about a 15% discount. And I gave him both options, and he opted for the cash all at one time.
Well, it's like hitting the lottery.
Yeah. So it's not always about the highest price.
I've seen that many times in estate sales where, unfortunately, maybe the family just wants money today and they accept the 10-day close cash.
Well, it's funny. One of my agents today, we just had that exact example. Selling a house on a lake property, and they are wanting money quickly. so the price of the house has been listed at like $299, and the other agent and I both firmly believe it's probably a $350 house. But so they're going to get $299 probably the day it goes active, and have money in 30 days. Now my guess is, I told her, I said, you'll probably get maybe $350 even, because somebody will bid and then somebody will
Yeah, they might.
overbid.
Well, when you're splitting it 5 ways, it doesn't matter as
Yeah,
much.
see, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know the story. They are splitting it 5 ways.
Yeah.
But once again, 60 grand, 5 ways, 12 grand. They're losing 12 grand, but they're getting it quicker. And typically, like you said, in an estate sale, I just want my inheritance today.
Well, we've heard stories of people sacrificing $30,000-$40,000 to get quick money. We heard a story from another agent friend of ours yesterday.
Just yesterday.
Somebody sacrificed $40,000 for 30 days.
Yeah,
of
the
time.
guy had the house listed, Eli. The guy had the house listed at 165. Eli offered 115 cash tomorrow, and the guy took it. So remember that when you're actually buying anything, that there is a discount for either time or cash.
Yeah, there's a reason why they say cash is king.
Yeah.
It cuts out a lot of hoops and third parties and other things by being able to just pony the cash.
So if the diligence goes through, I presume you want him around for 6 months. You can do a little bit of training, and then ultimately you just want access to him if you need him after.
Yeah. I think in the LOI that I wrote that he would probably not have more than 10 to 15 hours a month of conversations. The good thing is we are purchasing in the same vertical that Joe and I currently working now in the online education. So most of the technical stuff of how the education works, we already know. It's just the small stuff, like Joe was saying. When do the licenses need to be renewed? What's the password for the back room? We're doing something a little different. Most sales, and this is important if you're out there,
Yes.
if you're looking to buy, there's actually 2 types. Most of them are what they call an asset sale, where they're selling the assets. We are actually doing a stock purchase, and there's a reason behind this, because the licenses that have all been granted in these various states are granted to the company. And if we were to just buy the IP, we would have to jump through the hoop to get them all renewed in those states. And if we're going to do that, why buy it? We would
Get
just
the licenses.
we would just get the license anyway. So this is a case of exactly the same thing. We're buying a company, and mainly for speed, because we can
Boom.
Overnight.
be in 14 states.
Yeah, that's good.
As opposed to spending the time to do it. So buying the shares of the LLC now means all of the licenses are still in the same company name.
Yep.
It's just a new owner of LLCs. And then all we have to do is submit a new owner document saying, hey, instead of this, it's this. All right?
Sounds easier.
There's a downside to buying the LLC or buying the shares of the stock, because theoretically you become liable for everything that LLC has ever done. So one of the things you typically have your attorney put in is some kind of indemnification clause. And what I'm saying is, so if this guy would have done something illegally last year,
Doesn't come back and
it could come back and bite us now, because now we own the company that did the violation. So you would have to indemnify us as of a certain date. Anything before that is going to be his problem. So there is a downside. Whereas if we'd have bought the asset, put it in a new company, that company would have died, and then any potential lawsuit would have just been gone away.
To nowhere. Yeah.
So while it does seem easier, there is a potential downside to buying shares of a company.
Risk is higher.
Yeah, there's some risk, and it can be mitigated.
Should someone seek out an attorney when they're buying a business or selling?
Most definitely. As smart as I think I am, I still got an attorney that I want him to read everything, and then he dumbs it down for me. So I would say, yes, you should never endeavor to buy or sell without using
As
an
smart as
attorney.
you are smart enough to recognize
Yeah.
that sometimes you need to have the professional that does it all the time.
Well, the
help you
thing to
through it.
remember is the attorney on the other side is going to write everything slanted to that side.
Yeah.
And you see this happen a lot with tenants, and they're like, well, my lease, I didn't read my lease, and my lease says this. Where'd you get the lease? Oh, well, the landlord gave it to me. Well, guess what, dumbass?
You
Yeah.
lose.
That lease was written by the landlord, so it's
Yeah.
going to be slighted towards the landlord. You want your attorney to read every paragraph so they could go, hey, we'd like to modify this statement to say this,
Yep.
and go through that. Not every contract is a contract, remember?
Yep.
It's only a contract when you sign it. So when you get it, have your attorney look at it, and then let him go, yes, this looks good, here's your protection, or it's not in there, let's add a paragraph to this contract, and then it becomes a negotiation between the buyer and the seller as to what the contract really actually says. Now, the downside is my attorney happens to be on vacation this week,
Oh,
So it puts us back a little bit.
so it is going to push this back, which opens another issue. Theoretically, verbally, they've accepted my offer. Well, we're sitting here today and it's a Thursday. Theoretically, if someone pops up tomorrow, some other person who already has their ducks in a row, so to speak, and sends an LOI in, it could go under contract before I get a chance to write my letter of intent, which is LOI. The letter of intent is basically just a list of conditions. It's not a legally binding contract. It's just a list of conditions that you want in the contract.
I've heard it referred to as a list of some kind of, but that
Yeah.
could, the conditions.
It's-
or
and
demands or something.
in the real estate world, especially in the commercial world, we use LOIs a lot rather than purchase agreements, because in the commercial world, PAs are written by an attorney, and you don't want to hire an attorney to write 5 or 6 counteroffers. It's usually bullet point on a Word document,
Yeah.
plain English, and then once you guys agree on those 5, 6, 9, 15 terms, whatever, then you hand that LOI to an attorney and go, hey, write me one contract with these points in it, and ta-da, it gets accepted. Now, the cool thing about an LOI, or the bad thing, depending on what side you're sitting on, because it's not legally binding, when that attorney writes the one contract and you send it over and go, okay, here's what we agreed on, they literally could still say, no, we've changed our mind. But you signed the LOI, doesn't matter. It's a letter of intent to write an offer. It's not a binding offer. So you actually don't want to make your LOI very legalistic. And I tell a lot of people that. Write it plain English so that you guys understand, don't be writing LOIs with, well, the party of the first part does hereby agree that the party of the second, don't do that.
Make it easy for them.
Well, for 2 reasons. One is you want to, A, make it easy so the other guy understands what you're saying, but 2 is so that you can make it not look like a contract in case somebody jumps up and goes, oh, well, that was a purchase agreement. That wasn't a letter of intent. No, dude, it was 5 bullet points on a Word document,
Yep.
So,
Well, I have a couple friends that have asked me a couple times about buying businesses. And the one you're buying is very much congruent with the other stuff you do. And I tell him I don't think he should buy a small business just to generate income, because if the current owner runs the business and has an interest in the business, and if you don't,
yeah.
you know what I mean? If you're not in it, you're not going to be in it next.
Well-
As an owner, you can't be a
Typically-
passive owner in a small business.
Typically, there are 2 types of businesses you buy. You buy one that is, and we joke about this and it's used a lot, you buy a job,
Yeah, lifestyle.
or you're an investor. All right? Now, we both know that I own a company that I have no knowledge in whatsoever, a hair salon. That is one that's typically was bought as an investment
pointing out no knowledge. No knowledge here either.
Yeah, you and I together.
Yeah.
I have no knowledge of the business. I'm not licensed in the business. It was purely a play of it cost me this and I could make a return of this. But I do rely heavily on the people that work there to run it. The one that we're looking at is my daily job that we do with the online education. So I will run it,
Yeah.
but it is an investment, so to speak.
But if someone bought it, went there every day, looked to grow it, it would be a different business, I guess,
Yes.
is my point. And that's what I think could be missing. If you look at smaller businesses, you typically have to be involved,
Yeah.
based on my experience. So
One of the
that's-
things we
that's
looked
fine.
at buying a school for hair salons, believe it or not, because it was a combination of the two. And we were approved for an SBA loan, but one of the things the SBA loan actually required was that I was a daily operator. And I literally had to tell them I would not be a daily. This school was actually out of state. And there were some other reasons the deal didn't go through. The numbers weren't exactly what he claimed they were. But that would have been a big stumbling hurdle for me to borrow, the $1 million.
Didn't have to go every day.
Because, yeah, especially out of state.
Yeah, that
It
was
would have
a
made
lot
it
of-
tough.
That was a big commute for that one.
Yeah. So, yes, you buy it usually buying yourself a job or buying as an investor where you're completely hands off. And either way is great. I belong to several Facebook groups, and one of them is called Businesses for Sale by Owner. And there are a lot of people in there that give other people a hard time about, oh, you don't want to buy that, you're just buying yourself a job. Sometimes that's cool. I mean, if that's what you want. I mean, if you're going to work 60 hours a week and you do it for yourself or do it for someone else, might as well do it for yourself.
Well, I think the importance is you have to identify what side you're going in on to begin with. You can't. It's going to be difficult. I think it is difficult to go in one way and switch to the other. If you are going to invest in a business and just invest in it, and you're not going to run it. You need to do that and stick to it.
Yes.
Don't do that and then get involved on a level that you can't really run it. If you're going to run the business, go in and run the business, but don't try to mix it.
Well, you'd have to learn the business first.
Yes.
And then run the business. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be a...
That's an awful large, steep learning curve. Trust
Huge.
me, I've went through it with
Yes.
the hair salon. I mean, I've learned a lot about it over the 3 years because I had to. Even as just the money guy, there's still things you had to be aware of and understand that it runs differently than whatever you're doing. Unless you're in the hair business, it's going to run differently than what you're doing now. And I think that would be the first thing you would tell your buddies. If you're coming out of a property management job and you're looking at buying a plastic molding manufacturing company, you better
love it
and be
learn it.
prepared
Yeah.
that you're going to have a steep uphill learning curve the first couple years.
Yeah.
Almost said weeks, but it's going to be years.
There aren't, I'm just venturing to guess that unless someone's retiring or something's changing, there aren't a lot of real profitable, bigger small businesses, maybe where there's 20, 30 employees. If it's profitable and good,
Well,
Unless they're using it to be,
outside
look at
of
it this
retirement,
way, like you invest in your house. People will invest in their house to gain equity in it, to sell it, to take that equity and get something bigger. There are people that do that with businesses.
Yeah.
Run it, get their equity, sell it, take that equity and buy something that's bigger at that
Yes.
point.
Well, usually the best way, and we've already identified the one that we're looking at to buy, we think there's actually a side business that the current owner's not taking advantage of that could actually spin out into a second company that we could end up with two streams of income because they run together.
Yep.
But he's not utilizing it correctly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the key items. I remember you asked me one time, what did I look in? And I told you the first thing I look for is management in place because I typically buy as an investor. I don't want to do the daily activity. So management in place. But the second thing is the current owner not utilizing it correctly. And there's a potential that we could spin this second business off and it will earn enough to actually pay for, and this other business becomes free.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So
Well, I can think of businesses. We all have a friend that runs a business who resists doing anything online, resists doing events.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that could be done to grow that, probably tremendously. But also some, that's a lifestyle business and he doesn't want to muddy the water.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That is probably the euphemistic term that you hear it called is the lifestyle business, meaning a business that I operate and it's providing me, a couple $100,000 a year, but I have no desire to make it $500,000 a year because then I have to work more. And I'm real happy working, 30 hours a week and weekends off and making a couple $100,000.
And everything is in motion.
Yeah,
the way
and
you want
everything's
it.
already in place. That's the opportunity when that person sells for the next buyer to come in and go, okay, I'm going to live off what he has built, but I do see 3 or 4 other spin-offs that I could generate probably as much income or more
Yeah.
off the spin-offs. It's just that the current owner is not utilizing it correctly.
So it's a ramp into growth, either one of those ways.
Yeah.
You're buying quick access in a number of states, or
So that's probably the second biggest thing you ought to be looking at is the current management or the current owner not utilizing the company to its fullest extent.
should someone that is thinking of starting a business, doesn't know what to do, should they explore buying an existing business?
I think the question is that becomes a price point. He and I have had this conversation several times. We've looked at dozens of online educational companies where the price tag was so astronomical that we literally said, for half of that, we could compete against them. We looked at an online school in Florida that was 1.6 million. And we were like, okay, I'm not bothered by the number. I'm bothered by the value.
Yes.
Which are two different things. It was producing that, but for 800,000, could we have reproduced it and been just as well off?
It becomes a time quotient more than anything.
Yeah.
Especially in the realm of what we do, it's when you get past the content for education. So let's say that we've got all the content and that isn't the issue. The value comes in and whether you are buying your time by buying that business.
Avoiding the pain.
Well, I mean, we've
hurdles they jump through.
how many hurdles have we gone through, the three of us, just trying to get into other states? Well, you've got to do this, and then you got to submit that here, and then they tell you 2 other things you got to do to submit
Yeah.
here. Then you got to take that and submit that over here, and it just is a time grab, and you are reliant on other people to do things.
That's the one good thing, like I said, with this school that we're looking
Yes.
at now. When the sale becomes final, we're in 14 states.
Yeah, green light on day one.
When I have looked at business listings, I have always in my mind, okay, maybe the numbers make sense, but if the numbers are that good, why are you parting with this?
That's usually
You know.
a common.
So
thing.
that's where you get into the diligence. You have to kind of sign a non-disclosure, get under an agreement that you're not going to spill the beans, and then
Yeah,
then
figure
they
out.
open.
And
the
that's
cookie
also
jar.
the importance of having some idea of what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
Jumping off the.
There's one of the factors that I think is largely overlooked in your question is this portion called goodwill.
Yep.
Goodwill actually plays a large portion in my mind, but a small portion in the monetary version of that. And the best way I could say that is, would you rather buy Walmart, if you could buy all of Walmart for $1 billion, or start your own with the idea that I want to compete against? Well, Walmart has a brand name that's established and huge goodwill.
Yeah.
So there is a large component that you're paying for that people go, oh, let's go to Walmart. It just rolls off their
Yeah.
tongue now after 30 years. So, I mean, if you're in the pizza business, do you want to start your own pizza? You could probably start it cheaper than, say, Domino's.
Yeah.
But Domino's has some goodwill that has been built up.
Well, like Kleenex versus Bob's bath tissue.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but everyone calls it a Kleenex, so there's more goodwill in that name
Yeah.
than there is.
Bob's
Now,
tissue is a Kleenex.
There could also be a case where goodwill turns out to be bad will.
Yes.
And there are people that specialize in buying distrodden or downturned names for the sole purpose of trying to,
Icon.
Carl Icahn.
Swoop in with bad management, put his people in play, turn the business around, sell
Yeah.
it for a profit. He's good at it.
So there are several things to identify, and like I said, that's the second one I look at is the management not utilizing it, and you could add that in there. Are they actually hurting their business because they're not doing it right and going in and pivoting a bad name to a good name?
I think there's a sweet spot right in the middle. You want one where it's not quite being handled the way you want it to be handled, but it isn't driven into the ground to the point that you can't recover it.
And unfortunately, you are correct. And the problem with that is it takes 30 to find that one.
As we found out.
Yes, as we've found out. I mean, Joe and I have gone under NDAs 5 or 6, 7 times
Just in the last couple of years.
and not pulled the trigger because you find something. And this one that we are actually pulling the trigger on is one out of 15 or 18 that we've looked
Yeah.
at.
Well,
You know?
everything is a numbers game like that.
So it may be that if you're looking to buy out there, remember that not everyone, and you may look at 15. It's like houses. You got to look at 15. And the thing that I will tell you is the one that you find, I don't know how to explain it, but you'll know it. There's risk, obviously, but there's nothing wrong in this business yet that I have found that makes me go, okay, I'm not interested.
Well, it's like being a house flipper. There are houses out there that you can buy and flip and make a lot of money on, and there's houses out there that you can buy and think you can flip and turn it into a complete poop show.
Yeah.
And businesses are very, very similar in that way. I mean, you can really get yourself. Well, we've talked about, not having. If you're going to start a business from scratch, don't always spend all your time on the business plan. Just go.
Yeah.
But if you are going to make a purchase of something that's already in place, you need to take that time.
Did that moment of clarity come in dialogue with the seller?
Actually, it came in clarity of dialogue with God in my prayers
Yeah,
because He was the first one I asked.
it's the ultimate authority.
But the numbers made sense, and you talked to him, and something pushed you over the edge.
Yeah.
That,
In this particular case, it's exactly the example of what you were saying. An elderly guy that's been doing the business for 20 years, so there's 20 years of history. He is tired, and he freely admits that there are several aspects that he hasn't entertained because he just doesn't have the drive anymore at 70 years old. So, yes, you're right. Conversations with him, conversations with the business broker, looking at the numbers, they all formed one little piece of a puzzle. And then when he opted to take the cash all at one shot, but stay on for 6 months, that was kind of the hurdle. I mean, it theoretically, even if it's as badly run as I think it is, it's going to pay for itself in 2 years.
yeah.
you
Which
know.
is a normal price, right? 2 to 4 years of
Yeah.
net income, right? I mean, that's where
2 to 4
business ought to
years
be.
Yeah.
EBITDA is a good rule of thumb. There's some
This is the first.
jockeying around with that. You could,
This is also the first time we've dealt with someone that has a pragmatic realization of what they have
yes,
and are looking at it with a brain and not a heart,
yeah,
so to speak. Not that I'm saying the guy's heartless, but he is smart enough to divorce emotion from business.
yeah,
And we've come across a lot of people that can't do that because it's like they're selling their baby.
yeah.
A lot of
yeah.
people
And-
want to feel entitled to part of the future profit of what the business could be.
Yeah.
Like in selling land to develop into houses. We're going to sell it at this high price because you're going to develop it and make $1 million.
Yeah.
We want half that.
Yeah.
But This guy has his stuff together.
And that both of those are exactly
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
This guy is realizing that he is selling something as is that could be something bigger, but he's not trying to get a portion of that by selling it astronomically. I mean, he was at 2.5 times, and we got him to take just a tad under 2 times his money.
That's good.
So it's not going to be a huge lifestyle change for him by any means, but for us, it adds synergy currently to what we are doing in the real estate education world. So for us, it's a smart play.
It's
Excellent.
a win-win, which is
Yes.
what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, and no one's really getting over on anyone else.
Yeah.
And that's, probably another good indication that it's a pragmatic move. No one feels like they're pulling the wool over anyone's eyes.
Yeah, and not trying to.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
No, I'm excited to see how this rolls out.
Well, unfortunately, it's going to probably roll quickly
Yeah.
once we've made the decision and we've done most of the due diligence. So I'm saying probably within 3 weeks.
It's going to make for a very interesting fall.
Yeah. Because it is going to add a little bit of work on our plate to bring it in under our wing. And the other thing is we're actually, because we're buying the stocks, it's a separate company. So it's going to be disassociated with our current company, even though they run, synergistically in that.
At least in the short term.
Yeah. There
Because
may
you don't
come a
have to
time-
change it.
There may come a time where we bring it in under our brand, but I don't see that happening in 6 to 12 months at least.
Oh, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
all right. Thank you very much. And as always, welcome to the new Five Stones podcast. We'll see you later.
Harumph.